All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is 3:15 p.m., so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm John Bullock, Councilman for the 9th District and Chair of the Finance and Performance Committee. Appreciate your indulgence today, waiting a few minutes, but we definitely wanted to get started today. As you know, we have representatives from the Baltimore City Police Department, also from the Council President's Office, the Mayor's Office, I believe, as well, and obviously Marguerite Kern, who's staff in our committee, also Councilmember Ramos of the 14th District, who's here with us today. Again, the reason why we hold these hearings is to be on the same page with our agency representatives as it relates to these quarterly briefings, looking at statuses of some of our expenses, whether they be overtime, vacancies, equipment needs as well. And so just thinking about where things are based upon prior years and where we are now and where we expect things to be going in the next year or so. So again, we really appreciate you. We know it was a tight turnaround in terms of time, so we're very recognize that as well. So again, we appreciate your time. And so we will go ahead and then, let's see, missed anybody? Okay, I think we got everybody. We'll go over and turn it over to Chief Graham. Oh, yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having us today. Again, my name is Charlotte Graham. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Baltimore Police Department. And I just want to check before I begin. Can everybody see the presentation? Okay, wonderful. Well, I apologize that it's such a small crew today. We actually had federal court at the very same time, so we had to split between being here and being in court. The first slide I'm going to talk about is actually the budget to actuals of where we ended up last fiscal year. So we can see here in fiscal year 2023, we actually managed our resources within budget. We came under budget by $658,000. Obviously, this is an unaudited number. We did experience within the year overtime. Was over budget because of our high vacancies, which we're going to get into as we go through this presentation, but we were able to offset that with the salary savings from those vacancies. So at the end of the year, we came in under budget. Next slide, we're going to talk about the actual overtime for this fiscal year 2024, year to date. If you look at this slide, the yellow/beige color, that is the overtime trend for the fiscal year of 2021. The red trend is for fiscal year 2022, and the blue trend is for fiscal year 2023. The gray at the top is fiscal year 2024, and that shows us year to date where our overtime is. Our target for our overtime internally is $1.75 million a pay period. And the reason why you see that trend increasing is because there's been an increase also with our vacancies, not just on our sworn staff, but also on our professional staff. So right now our vacancies are at 800, that's sworn and professional staff. So year to date, we've spent $17.3 million in overtime, and that's up to pay period 8. Year to date, this time last year, we'd spent $13.7 million, but we've also had an increase of over 200 vacancies since then. So next slide, please. So this is the same trend. The only difference about this slide and the last slide was in dollars. This allows you to see the overtime in hours, which gives you the quantity apples to apples, because as you know, every year employees get step increases or they get COLA adjustments. So this allows you to see the trend, neutralizing those things. So our target each pay period is 28,000 hours, and as you can see, we're exceeding the target slightly because of the vacancies, and we're averaging about 34,000 a pay period. Next slide, please. So this shows you the trend between the overtime and the vacancies. So the overtime on the left will show you the overtime trend since Q1 of fiscal year 2023, and you can see the trend increasing up to the data we just saw. And then to the right, you can see the vacancies. You can see that the vacancies also have been increasing because they're directly correlated. You know, we're still expected to go to calls for service. We're still expected to do things for the residents of Baltimore. So in order to do that, we have to do it on overtime. So you can see right now the vacancies as of September 1st, 2022, which is the end of Q1. Last fiscal year with 525, end of this fiscal year, Q1, 709, and today they're at 800. Thank you. And we were asked to report on the health of our vehicles. As we know, vehicles have been a big matter. You know, we've not been historically replacing our vehicles in time. It's caused a lot of excess maintenance costs. There was a study several years back done by the Civic Innovators, and the recommendation was that we need to replace our vehicles at the end of the useful life. So we've been working towards that with our partners in DGS. So right now we have 582 vehicles in patrol. That combines marked and unmarked, and then 273 city-owned and non-patrol, for a total of 855 city-owned vehicles. 191 of those city-owned vehicles exceed their useful life. In addition to that, we have rentals of 364, which gives our total fleet of 1,219. We have in the last year been able to, in the last couple of years, put hybrids into patrol. So right now we have 159 hybrids in service. Next slide, please. So as you know, we've been trying to replace all the vehicles that exceed their useful life, but as every year goes by, there's going to be more vehicles that exceed their useful life. So you'll see there's multiple vehicles we have in the procurement process right now, and you might wonder why are there so many categories in the procurement process and different types of funding. Well, that's because we've been trying to be creative and find all the funding we can to get out of the situation where we're replacing our vehicles in a timely manner. But there's also been issues with the manufacturers. Because of COVID, there's been severe delays in the manufacturers catching up on the backlog, and we're still experiencing that. Even right now, there's a labor strike right now, so these items have been in the procurement pipeline for longer than traditionally what they would normally be. So we were asked to also discuss the BPD needs. So on here, we have some equipment needs that have gone through our needs assessment process. We actually have our own internal budget committee, and throughout the department, if there's an unfunded request, the request of the needs assessment, we call it, can put this forward to the budget committee, and we have open dialogue about whether this item is a necessity or if it's a future item, so that we can program and rank our highest priority items. These are some of the items that we considered higher priority. We've got on here the vehicles. Well, you might ask me, why do we have the vehicles on here? Well, the Civic Innovators recommended financially that we should not be renting our vehicles, that it was more cost effective to be owning those vehicles. So in order to do that, we need an upfront investment to get out of the rental vehicles. We also have on here cameras and LPRs. We have on here Skylift. We have on here ballistic helmets, which is a safety matter for the employees. We have an armory forklift that's exceeded its useful life. And we also have on here armor and equipment for our Homeland Security unit. We also have some software needs. We have a InfoShare, which is an intelligent management software. We're not currently in compliance with 28 CFR Part 23 because we're managing that data in an Access database, so we need to get in compliance there. And then we also have on there some fleet software that's partially required by the consent decree, so we can do certain things. So next slide is facilities. I'm not going to get into the details of facilities because there's many city partners involved in this, but BPD has a lot of facility needs, from aging facility needs and also strategic moves. So right now this year we've requested 29 capital improvements for existing needs via the process with Department of General Services. And just to give you some examples, a short-term example is Northeastern and Northwestern District. We have some partial funding for that, but the deficit we estimate is around $50 million. And a long-term example is a Joint Public Safety Training Center. As you know, we're at the University of Baltimore right now, but we've got a renewal for the lease in 2024, and then a 5-year extension to 2029. But we need to be thinking about what are we going to do in 2029. So With that, I will answer any, oh, sorry, there's one more slide. So this is the city crime statistics, and we were requested to put this in the presentation. Obviously, this is not our expertise, so I'm going to cover this very briefly. You'll see on here that the homicide clearance rate has doubled. The shooting clearance rate has increased too. Although those are good trends, obviously we're never satisfied with those trends. We want them to be, we don't want to have them, right? But we're least optimistic about the direction that the trends are going in. Another thing, the auto thefts have been increasing. This is a national trend, with the Kia and Hondas, who have been donating clubs that we've been handing out to the residents. And that is the last slide. So at this time, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, first off, thank you for being comprehensive and brief at the same time. I also want to recognize Councilman Reporter of the 10th District who joined us as well as the Mayor's office. So there's a lot in here. One of the things that you just mentioned around the overtime piece and then around the vacancies. I also see Council Member Chair McCray is also entering, so thank you for joining us as well. The vacancies, both sworn and professional. So how many on the professional side, and what are we looking at in terms of closing that gap, or how does that happen?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I can give you the statistics of that, and then we have Major Brickers here who can go into the details about what we're doing about that. So currently, right now, there's 800 vacancies. 583 of those are sworn vacancies, and 232 of them are professional vacancies.
And as we talk about that level of vacancy, are we looking at an increased volume or percentage, or is that kind of standard of what we've been seeing? Is that kind of out of your expectations?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Major Brickers on behalf of the Administrative Bureau. So would you repeat the question, please? I apologize.
No, the question, I mean, with the 583 sworn, the 252 professional, is that a larger number than you had seen in the past? Were you surprised by that number? Is that trending down, up? Where are we with that?
Yeah, so I do have our numbers regarding our 5-year comparison. And unfortunately, we have seen the numbers increase during the course of the years, specifically as it relates to retention. Mm-hmm. So our retention, we've seen the average of about 19 persons separate during the course of 2023. And with our 5-year differential, let's see, 5-year attrition was a total of 244. Our 2023 attrition thus far is 200. So not a very large difference, but there is a difference.
Got it. And then just looking at the overtime hour comparison slide, I don't know if anybody can pull that up, but there appeared to be a significant jump. I'm looking at the 2021 numbers. I just saw the spike toward the end. Any idea what happened there?
As far as the increase in overtime?
Yeah, there's like a dramatic spike back. Well, if you look at the red line, I'll just trying to figure out what happened at that point.
Yeah, so the spike in the fiscal year 2023 was actually on New Year's Eve, and it was the Commissioner's Day.
Okay.
And then there's another spike in fiscal year 2024, and that was the bike race.
Okay.
Thank you.
One other piece before I go on to some of the other members. You'd mentioned the license plate readers. And I know auto thefts has been a big issue, obviously, in our city and then across the country. How many do we have, and how many do we think we need to have?
It's a great question, sir. Let's see if we have those numbers.
Obviously, I'm not the operational expertise, so I can get back to you on how many we currently have. I can tell you that there's more in the pipeline right now. So we have a COPS grant, and we're getting on the 5 mobile LPRs, and we're getting in the 8 to 12 fixed LPRs, depending on price. And then we also have a Homeland Security grant, and we're getting an additional 21 mobile LPRs.
I'll go to some members. Any of our members? Yes, Chair McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was actually one of my first questions. Just to build on to that committee request, are the mobile ones the car-mounted ones, or is that something different?
Yes, those are the ones that are affixed inside of the vehicles.
Okay, is that Director Lawson? I don't have my glasses on. Okay, it is. Do we know the cost of each license plate reader, specifically the car-mounted ones and also just the stationary ones? Thank you.
Yes, no problem. So the mobile ones are about $14,500. The fixed ones are about $60 to $100K.
And I think you went over this. I know that there was a discussion with the mayor's auto theft strategy that we were supposed to be getting 17 fixed LPRs, and is it still 21 mobile? Was that the number that you said earlier for 2024?
Yeah, I don't have the current inventory. We'll get you that information since it's a little bit more of an operational question. But yes, I can tell you what we're procuring this year. And we have the COPS grant. We're getting 5 mobile, 8 to 12 fixed, depending on price. And we have a Homeland Security grant, and we're going to get an additional 21 mobiles.
Is there any, are there additional opportunities that are pending for grant funding for additional LPRs?
Yes, we're always looking at that. We put in a couple of requests with some third-party nonprofits for additional LPRs. In addition, we have asset forfeiture funding and some other funding that, when possible, we're always looking to supplement those. And as you saw earlier, we put it on our equipment needs list.
Thank you. I'm done for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Councilmember Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question about the needs slide. You may have said it and I may have missed it. In terms of, these are already budgeted, or you have to raise money in order to do this?
Yes, we don't have any of this budgeted. This is all unfunded items. So one of the requests was for us to put together a list of our equipment needs. So these are things we have not found funding for yet.
So when you were just talking about the LPRs, this $2 million included what you were just talking about?
No, this
Okay.
would be an addition.
This would be an addition?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many would this buy, the cameras and LPRs?
It depends on the combination of mobile versus fixed and how that ratio is put together. But a fixed is 60 to 100K, a mobile is just under 15K.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then that's the same with the software line as well, that these are, even though we're behind on consent decree compliance, we still have these to
These
deal
are
with.
unfunded, yes. We have been fortunate that, we did get some supplemental funding from ARPA and other things. So last year, we were able to fund about $12 million of our high priority needs. But obviously, with these type of items, we're constantly looking at our federal partners, our state grants, and see if we have savings and if we can work these items into those savings. Obviously, the one where we're not in compliance, with 28 CFR Part 23, that's the Intel management software. That's obviously probably going to be our highest priority so that we can get into compliance.
And have you identified a funding source for that yet?
So we're working on that right now. It just went in front of our internal budget committee last week, and now Director Fasedi Arts is trying to find funding for it.
Okay. My next question was on the overtime and vacancies. I think we discussed this during budget, but I just want to be sure that with the money that is not being used because we are not able to hire, we're shifting that over to overtime. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct, yes.
Okay. And so do we have that ratio of what that looks like? Was that in here?
It is. So I can tell you, when we did this analysis, so we'll do it every quarter because the vacancies obviously have been increasing slightly above projections. But we used the analysis to say we had 425 sworn general fund positions, and that would give us about $48 million in salary savings. We had a budget of just over 30 million. So then we plug in the excess money to our overtime and redo the formulas that we give out to the commanders. But that is something that we're going to be constantly looking at so that we can make sure that, our overtime budget is matching that. At the end of the year, though, you don't see that because, as you saw the very beginning slide, we came in under budget because, as you mentioned, the salary savings pays for the excess overtime.
Right, so, but you do have a line item for overtime, so you use
We
that.
do, yes, yes.
And so the savings ends up, you have to use it, you have to use overtime because we're not able to, so it's still supplementing it. So we're spending a lot more on overtime, is what you're
That's
saying.
exactly right, yes.
And then what happens at the end of the fiscal year with that money?
Yeah, so if you look at it from the general fund stance, it's all in salaries. So then the overages and overtime is covered by the shortages in the sworn personnel costs.
So it's a wash.
It
at the end of
balances
the day.
out, yes. And now it's not apples to apples. We do have to slightly come up with an offset elsewhere. It costs about $130,000 to pay for coverage for a full-time position in patrol. Well, the average vacancy savings is around about 120K. So there is a slight deficit because, we're paying time and a half versus straight time. So it's not apples to apples. We do have to come up with a slight additional amount from elsewhere within our budget.
Which is why the vacancy savings is important, because otherwise you wouldn't be
Yes.
able to make it. Okay. Thank you. I have one other question, but I can yield.
I do have one follow-up question in terms of the vehicle piece, because I get what you're saying in terms of it being more cost-effective, the ownership versus the rental. That 18 million number, how quickly will we be talking about making a transition? Because again, it wouldn't be like every vehicle all at the same time, but can you walk us through what that would possibly look like?
Yeah, of course. So it would be a 3-year transition to, obviously the manufacturers probably couldn't even give us $18 million worth of vehicles based on the fact that they're behind. But it would be a 3-year implementation at the 18 million, which allows us at the same time to return the vehicles once we get the city-owned vehicles. And that's assuming the current price, which is $55,000 per vehicle.
Say that
55, but it can change every year. I mean, obviously it's set by the manufacturer.
Got it. Councilman Ramos?
I have, this is I'm trying to do something larger with this question, but specifically, I'm interested to know if you have a breakdown of the budget per district.
Yes, we do, yes.
Yeah, could you help us with that? Can you supply that to us? And I think like the last maybe 3 years, I know with redistricting, it makes it a little different, I understand. So that's why I'm going to ask for the last, 4 years in the old districts,
Okay.
if you don't mind, and then we'll start over with the new ones, because you're in the middle of the new districts now.
Yeah.
Because that changed right before the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So that would be really helpful. And I think if we can break it down, not just, how you normally break down the budget, so in terms of personnel, in terms of vehicles, in terms of, and I can give you the line items that I'm looking for, just so that you have them, that would be super. That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be
Thank you.
great, thank you.
One quick follow-up about the vehicle. So can you talk about the change in maintenance costs? Because I can imagine there'll be a shift there too.
Yes, I can, but if you don't mind, I'm going to defer it to our fleet manager, who is sat over here, and he can give you more of a detailed answer to that question.
Perfect.
Good afternoon. So I did a study, and we do have a current take-home program right now. And compared to what rental vehicles would be, it's roughly, so a take-home vehicle year-to-date over a 4-year period is about $20,000 in maintenance costs. That includes upfitting, so lights, cages, so on, also tires, brakes, As far as rental vehicles go, we get charged a flat fee every month included on the monthly price of each rental. So say it's $650 for one vehicle per month. So that includes maintenance, but you may not have maintenance done for every 3 months. So overall, in a year period, if we have a departmental and if we can make it into a assigned vehicle instead of a 24/7, also known as hot seat vehicle, then we would have cost savings on maintenance.
Thank you. Councilmember McCray.
Thanks for your patience. This was regarding the grant-funded items slide. It was a slide 27. Well, there's a line item $27,625 for lactation stations, lactation rooms within it looks like about 5 stations. Is that work completed?
Yes, it is. This was part of the SAP funding last year, so those lactation stations were completed, yes.
Is there a certain amount, that was grant-funded money, and I say that because I know that that's a very small amount to ensure that we are retaining women within our workforce. But is there a additional amount, or is there an additional need outside of grant funding as far as additional amenities within those rooms and additional supplies that people who are lactating may need within those rooms?
Yeah, so there is a need for supplies. I know, obviously we try to be resourceful with, the taxpayers' dollars. So recently we've been seeking donations from, other members for wipes and things. If needed, there is, money within the office supply budget for, sanitized wipes and things like that. Right now, they are stocked, and we've got a wonderful team in the equity office who's making sure that all the supplies and resources are needed there. And obviously, the director here who's over facilities who actually help get those lactation stations in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Also want to recognize Councilman Costello, Chairman, who's from the 11th District, to join us. Thank you for being here. I do have one question. I'm sure Councilman Costello will have several as well. But I see on the list you mentioned the capital projects for the northeastern, northwestern districts. That $50 million number, I mean, I do see it. I guess my question is around the current conditions as they are, right, as folks see them, but then also are we looking at renovations, new build? What are we kind of envisioning there?
Yeah, so they would both be, obviously this is, a partnership with our city partners, with DGS and the mayor's office. There is actually, the state awarded us $10 million, and potentially there's some additional funding available that's being earmarked for public safety to go towards those facilities. Everything's still being discussed right now. I don't think there's any official plan in regards to sites, but the intent, is for a new build.
Okay. Councilman Costello, do you have any questions yet? Okay. Is there anything that we haven't asked thus far that you think we should know about? Anything that's upcoming that we don't want to be surprised about? Just curious.
I don't think so. I mean, I think the overtime right now is the big trend. And I think just being aware that there is a lot of facility needs. I'm sure this is across the city. A lot of the buildings are aging and requiring new HVAC systems, new roofs, new electrical systems. We've discussed the strategy on the vehicles about just trying to get out of the rentals, which will require some upfront cost.
Okay, so I understand that. I will just double back to recruitment in terms of where we are, because I know there's the issue in terms of recruitment, onboarding, retention, but obviously that's driving our overtime issue. But do want to talk about what some strategies are and what the success has been thus far, or any challenges? Yeah.
Yes. So on behalf of the recruitment section, I'm actually the commanding officer for recruitment and background investigation. So we have been doing a lot since I've acquired recruitment under my area of command. just trying to get out, right? So we were coming from a space, obviously dealing with COVID and the pandemic, where we could now be more public-facing, right, with our outreach, our marketing, et cetera. So we have been using our marketing partner. I don't think they were being used to their full potential prior to me stepping into that role. And we've been really working together. There have been some delays in reference to payment, right, with being able to stay consistent in how we show up, right, with our marketing. But we have been supporting our online efforts with more traditional marketing. So you may have seen us like on the billboards, you'll see us, the bus banners, our subway service, et cetera. And it's actually twofold, right? So we're out there and we give people an opportunity that don't have access to, of course, our internet services to actually see and for that to jump out at them, but also for our officers, right? It boosts the morale for them to kind of see themselves out there as well, and it just feels like the support of the city overall to see themselves out in the city, you know, in which we serve. So we have kind of tweaked that, and also I have streamlined our background process. I don't like to rely heavily on overtime in order to go out and recruit for our agency. But do we need it? Sure, because my officers are working from sun up to sundown, because we want people who are interested in coming in to be able to come in after their work to be able to take the test, right? Monday through Saturday, essentially, not every day, but we have the specific days. But we want to be available to people when they are available to come in and test. You have a question, sir? I see you're looking. Okay, yes. So our approximate number for applicant intake for our calendar year was 2,361. So we do have people that have interest after we go through the preliminary phase, and people are invited to then take the NTN, which actually was a big deal because people were paying for the exam, the police exam. So thank you to Charlotte and her team to be able to assist us in finding funding where we now are able to give that test to anyone, right, for free. We actually foot that cost. So we have now taken away that barrier, right, because that can be a big deal for someone just paying for the test.
What was the cost for the test?
Of course you would ask me that, right? So I want to say that the test was $30 for state residents, yes. And then out of state was 50? 50. Good, yes. So yes, and then also it was a big deal in terms of where we were showing up for our physical agility tests. So we had use of 3500 West Northern Parkway, which we know we're no longer using, and I actually had to go out and find a space for us to be able to host people to come and take the physical agility test. That's the first place that we show up for people, right, is when you come to take the physical agility. And I actually had to find a place in order to host that. So now I've partnered with our Parks and Recs, so we're using the facility at Middle Branch Fitness Center, and it is a great way to show out not only for the police department and our partnership, but also for the city, because it's a very, very nice facility, right? So I thank Mr. Blackwell for welcoming us there and supporting us, but there's a lot, you know, involved in the recruiting of potential officers. And this is a business at this point, right? It's very competitive. So when I go out there and I find what other agencies are offering, right? I mean, now I have to find a way to now attract those people, right? So I was also able, thankfully, to raise our signing bonus to $10,000 as opposed to the $5,000. And we're working our way to developing a lateral program to welcome our rehires and to also welcome laterals. We do accept laterals, but we don't have an actual program. So we've been talking to the executive staff in terms of how that's going to look for us moving forward. And I apologize, do you have a specific question?
No. I mean, every time we talk, I have other questions that come up. So, so when you mentioned the recruitment and the marketing, are you doing an assessment of folks who come through and seeing what worked and what didn't work? Are there certain pieces that have been more successful than others?
Yes. So what I was actually doing is I was meeting with new hires, right? Because I also command Administrative Duties Division. And so that's kind of, I have an onboarding under me also that's kind of a subsidiary of the recruitment process. So unofficially, I was meeting with those members and giving them an opportunity to talk to me about the level of customer service, telling me why they chose Baltimore, and just unofficially. So then working with DOJ and our consent decree unit, we then developed a survey, right? So I can actually get that data, use that data, assess that data, and use it to our advantage. So I now have a survey that I actually disseminate to our new hires, and I actually went back to our starting class for this year, and moving forward, I'll actually go back, okay, for 2022 as well. But right now, I wanted to push that out to those persons that we have just for the calendar year that are coming in, and we actually were able to get some good information from doing those surveys. And I acquired some event iPads as well, so my team now going out for outreach, public-facing outreach, they now have iPads that have Wi-Fi service, so that we have a survey there as well. So us interacting with people, we can also present a similar survey so that we can see who our audience is, right? And how we can better target our efforts specifically. So more resourceful.
Okay, two quick questions, and I want to go back to other committee members. So when did the signing bonus shift from 5 to 10,000? How recent was that?
So that policy went into effect last month. I don't know the specific date, but I can get that to you. And we just signed off on an internal messaging for the increase, but the policy went into effect last month.
Okay, and then the other follow-up, the lateral program and rehires, do we get many rehires? And what does that look like? I'm just curious.
So rehires are rehires. They're just people who were formerly employed by the agency. I know that the PC is now where we are going to appeal to members who have recently separated, but that's going to be more, I guess, of a reinstatement, kind of. Is that more accurate in terms of language? Okay, so that's, I don't want to speak for the PC's office, but we have been working together to go out and kind of, make an attempt to appeal to members who have recently separated, and we are going to be offering them an incentive. But we also offer members an incentive who have separated more than a year anyway, right? So it's not a big difference in reference to that, but it's going to be a little more in terms of our, I guess, communication, right? So we'll be directly communicating or contacting individuals and kind of selling ourselves to them, if you will, to try to get them back on the job.
Right, and I could see that you were being delicate with the language, which I appreciate, because I'll try to be delicate in this way.
Okay.
I know that sometimes other jurisdictions may recruit our folks, but how is that working in the reverse? Are we, to the extent that you can get into them?
You know, I prayed on how to answer this question. So in terms of competitiveness, right? So in terms of crime, overall crime, we are out there. We are BPD. We go out and we fight crime, right? So you're asking for people to come and join this great team of officers. I mean, nothing like it. I proudly serve. I've been here 23 years. We're asking people to come and join our team, right? But we may not be able to offer you the same in terms of salary, working conditions, take-home vehicles, right? And that's tough. I just lost one of my recruitment officers to another agency who was happy. He came, he was like, ma'am, I love being here, right? And I'm in a really good place, but the schedule, that's a big deal as well, right? So I know we're in the process, I believe, of negotiations, and at present, we have officers that are on permanent night work, right? Young officers that are on permanent night work. That's tough, coming in 3 to 11 all year long. And then because we do have vacancies, you're not able to get the time off, right, when you request the time off. So then we are also dealing with kind of medical abuse and things of that nature, but that's their time they've accrued, and they make a decision to use that time when they're unable to get days off from work, right? But that's tough. So if you have a more appealing and more attractive work schedule, more attractive and more appealing working conditions, our vehicles, which we're doing a great job, right? But, you know, the take-home cars, all of that, right? How do I compete with it? How? I'm trying.
Let me ask one follow-up, and then.
Sure.
So when folks are coming into the department, I know it may be a broad question, but is there an average in terms of length of years of service that when folks come through the academy, how long they're staying with the department versus going to another agency?
So we were seeing, what was that 3 to 5 year mark?
Yeah, that was, yeah.
3 to 5 years. And then if you're talking about other agencies that are taking years of service, which is why we really need to look at a lateral program, right? Because again, we do take laterals, which just means that you already have a certification from another law enforcement agency. So will we take you? Sure. And then we have to look at comparative compliance and things like that to put you in your place here in terms of tenure and experience and training. But we don't have an actual program, right? So we're not able to say to you, hey, okay, so we'll give you this. This number of years as it relates to your pension or your salary. There's nothing consistent. So we now look at those cases case by case or situational.
Okay. Members? Any additional questions? Yes, Chairman McCray.
I want to know what was driving arsons.
What's driving arsons?
I'm the budget person.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have operations here today. But, I mean, I absolutely can have somebody from operations specifically call you to talk to you about that. Because I understand it's a very large concern. So, but since everybody here is budget besides me, and I don't want to speak about operations, but I absolutely will write it down. And if you'd like to do a briefing on it, we can do that. I know Councilman Ramos asked for a briefing about illegal guns coming into the city, and I set that up for her. So I'm happy to do that for you.
A briefing, a call.
I will set it up.
Yeah, and if we can get somebody next time, I know that we're focused on the budget items this time, but I also want to get into performance because you guys put it on there. You guys put the slide in there as well. Another item, since we don't have folks from the operational side, is just as a committee request, I want to know how many citations have been issued for quality of life issues since you guys took that over, since looks like June 12th.
Yep, and I will also, when we do that, I'll also need to talk with the state's attorney's office because we obviously experienced some difficulties when we first started. Our officers had not been issuing citations for a long period of time, but we did a very good job in the beginning when they were writing those citations. They actually go to compliance, and if they make a mistake, it goes back to those officers. So I do not have the numbers for you. We were asked to include the sort of the crime stats in here, but we were here yesterday on our oversight, so that is sort of a slide for, we were asked to do that, but 100% I can ask for that for you as well. That might take a little bit because one of the things that we are still developing with the state's attorney's office and BPD, so I can talk to data-driven, is the ability to follow a citation from the beginning to the end. So I think that's probably more what you're looking for than just how many we actually physically wrote. So
So I know it's two sides. I'm more so worried about your agency and your agency's role within it. But if you want to get
Sure.
more information through the whole process, I'll take that as well.
I don't want to overpromise, but I absolutely understand what you're looking for, and I will follow up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chairman McCray, thank you for raising the issue of arson. It was something I was also thinking about because I know there have been some, obviously we've dealt with it in West and Southwest Baltimore, but also there's been discussion about the potential for a arson task force. I'm not sure if anybody here would like to answer that, but I'm curious in terms of any thoughts, support, encouragement, or reticence about something like that.
Again, not my area of expertise, but I mean, I don't believe that BP would ever turn down, help from an agency to solve a problem. And I did want to go back to what Major Brickus said. One thing that when we were doing the town halls and the PC was out speaking, one of the things we were talking about is trying to hire laterals, and that is one of the things that we were speaking about. And I know that he's come out and said that he was going to look at members that left that were in good standing, and then trying to, as he said, if people are going to come into our jurisdiction and try to recruit our officers away, we're going to try to work on trying to do the same thing.
And to that point, where are the most fertile places that we've gotten folks?
I do not know the answer, but I will try to find out for you.
Councilmember Porter, do you have any questions? Okay. Let me see. Costello? Okay, so let's see. There's no one signed up to testify. There's no one online who's wishing to testify as well. So again, just any final thoughts or things that we should be looking out for in the next few months?
The only thing I was going to say, we didn't talk about it, but there's a lot of the recruitment incentives in our SAP budget. So, we've got 1.6 million that goes to, kind of the recruitment bonus, the referral bonus. We've got 1.3 million that goes towards housing bonus. So if they live in the city of Baltimore, they get $10,000 for the year. That's in a retention program too that goes towards the current employees, sworn employees. And then we also have some additional money in there for marketing as well.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So you spoke really quickly about this, but the referral program, talk about that.
Yeah, so through the SAP funding, we were able to increase the referrals. So if a current member refers somebody and they get brought onto the agency, if they've been here then less than 15 years, they get $5,000. If they've been here more than 15 years, they get $7,500. So it's an incentive for our members to help recruit people.
Okay, and then back to the living assistance. So you said, was that 10,000?
10,000, yes.
Okay, and then how many of our
12, I'm sorry, 12. I was thinking of something else. I'm so sorry, 12,000. I was thinking of the recruitment bonus, but 12,000 for housing.
Got it. And how many of our officers are taking advantage of that? Do we know?
I don't have the data in front of me. I'm happy to get that to you, and we can show you the breakdown between new employees and current employees too.
Right, because I think that's an important point that's been raised over the years, right? How many officers are living in the city or close by, and what that looks like in terms of recruitment and retention. So, yeah, those numbers would be helpful too.
Okay.
All right, not seeing any additional questions from committee members, so let's see. We will, again, reconvene at a later date, but I will just say it's been helpful to have this kind of conversation. We do believe in transparency, and so the ability to be here to ask questions. Sometimes we get encouraging stats, and sometimes we have challenging ones, but nonetheless, we do appreciate the work that BPD does, and thank you for being with us today. Just seeing that there are no other questions, we will stand adjourned. So again, thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.